one important way to slow down is make sure that sometime during the day, preferably in the morning, because you want to educate your organism into how you want it to behave during the day. You want to set a pattern that hopefully will, if not last during the day, at least that will get you started off well. And that pattern should involve not getting up and drinking 3 cups of chai and jumping onto your vehicle, onto, or under, or whatever, and immediately going out and dealing with the world. It preferably, if at all possible, early in the morning, involves you getting up, being calm, at least for a minute or two, and then meditating for however long you can, doing a little bit of yoga for however long you can, whatever time is available, and whenever the kids get, or the mother-in-law or whoever, whatever time they're getting up, make sure you're getting up before them. Oh, but then I'll have to go to sleep earlier. Yeah. Your point? You should be going to sleep earlier. Thank God, I am sure that all of you students of yoga are getting to sleep by 10 p.m. Right? No. All of you are not. Some of you may be. The rest of you are lying. It is very important, absolutely important, to be asleep before 12 midnight. And it's really, really desirable to be asleep before 11. Because what happens is, after about 11, there's your organism goes through, just like the seasons of the year, just like the what's going on with. If you look at what happens during the day, the sun rises, and slowly the influence and the heat and the light of the sun increases until midday, and then slowly it wanes until dusk. It so happens that the same thing in slightly different form occurs after sunset. So there's an increase in the power of heat and light, of Agni in the good sense and Pitta in the not so good sense, in the organism. So if you wait until 11 or 12 to go to sleep, the fire element has been activated again in your system. And that means you're not going to get as good sleep if you're trying to go to sleep right then as you would have otherwise. Because now the organism wants to be, and this is why people who have peptic ulcers often will find themselves waking up with pain in the middle at about midnight-ish or so. And that's why you get hungry then. If you're awake at that time, then, and if you were habitually awake at that time, very possibly you have your local pizza oven on speed dial. So, if you did nothing else but to make sure you were in bed by 11, and in bed means the device is over somewhere else, preferably off. I found that young people are very reluctant to ever turn the device off. Maybe they minimize it in some way or make it unable to make a lot of noise, but still it should not be off. But it should be off. Off is good, because then it can be turned on again. Because if it is not off, then that may disturb the quality of your sleep. And we are finding, the modern science is finding that lack of adequate sleep can cause all sorts of problems. It can make all sorts of problems worse, even including things that you would not think might be influenced by that, like diabetes. So, if you wanted just in a very, very easy, simple thing to do, okay, maybe not simple given the rest of your family, but potentially simple, make sure that you are in bed by 11, and make sure that you finished eating by 8. That you ate by 8. So that you had a couple of hours for the food to digest and get out of your stomach before you lay down. Otherwise, you eat a lot of food, immediately go and lie down, and then you're moving it, you're requesting your body to do two different things. One is to put a lot of blood into your digestive tract in order to work on all of the food, and the other is to go to sleep and do nothing. So that's confusing to the organism. You don't want to confuse your organism. You want to give it a very clear indication of what you want it to do, and then it's likely to do good things for you and behave in an appropriate way. So this Ayurveda focuses and puts a lot of emphasis on dinacharya and ritucharya. Dinacharya, acharya, the word acharya of course means a teacher, but in this case it comes from, in fact the word acharya comes from achara. And no, we do not mean spicy mango pickle. Achara, coming from the word chara, which means to move. So achara is a particular way of moving, how you move through the world. So dinacharya means how do you move through your day? And your day should start just like the day starts. You should start slowly, move to the main activity in the middle of the day, and then reduce your activity as the rest of the day goes to an end. Human beings have a limited amount of decision-making capability. Some people have estimated as little as 1 hour per day total. So, if you know that you have important decisions to make, you're always better off making them, as far as if possible, in the morning, when you are more likely, assuming that you have not jumped up and consumed a triple espresso and what have you. Assuming that, because the morning has a greater quality of calm and stability to it, which is related to the dosha kapha. And kapha is consistent, and it is juicy, and it lubricates the system, and it promotes stability. And that's the time that you want to be making decisions. Not so much in the afternoon, which is the time when vata is more predominant. And vata is very good for being flustered, and vata is very good for being confused. Vata is not good for making decisions. Now, so we can be sure that because life is fast, finding ways to make your own life slower is desirable and will give you good results. Because life is complicated, the simpler you can make your own life, the better it will be. Obviously, there are always going to be complications, but if you don't have to make all of your life complex, if you can find ways to make it simple, maybe this means have a simple furniture in your house, who knows what it is, but the quality of simplicity, in whatever way you can induce it or inject it or involve it in your life will benefit you as if it was a medicine. Because it is a medicine. Because it is dealing with that causative factor that is encouraging you to be out of balance. The causative factor caused complexity. Why should complexity cause disease? Because it is encouraging your attention and therefore your life force to move in many and often conflicting directions. So complexity rarely is something that is harmonious. Sometimes we can get harmonious complexity, but most of the time that's not the case. And especially not in a megacity, because you have to deal with all of your other residents. And all of these residents have their own priorities and their own intentions. And many of them are very unbalanced, these residents in your city. And therefore, when your environment is, when you are surrounded by 19.9 million disturbed people, then you have to put some extra emphasis into being calm. So it's important to be as calm as possible, because calm is not something that is characteristic of the modern world. We're surrounded by lack of calm. And because you're surrounded by lack of calm, it may be more beneficial to you to be meditating 5 minutes of every hour instead of half an hour or an hour once a day. The Buddhist teacher Thich Nhat Hanh encouraged people to either, when the phone would ring, to wait for a breath before answering the phone, so that you had time to inhale, time to exhale, time to center yourself before you dealt with whatever calamity was on the other end. But at least you had time to prepare yourself, however, in whatever kind of minor way. Some people, nowadays, at least in the US, you have clocks that will strike a chime every hour. And that chime will remind you that you should stop what you're doing and take 1 breath or 2 breaths or 3 breaths. And again, return yourself to a condition where your prana is flowing easily. If you're exercising or taking a long walk or whatever, you're going to find it easier to do so if you are not panting for breath. That means when you find your pace, you know that you found your pace when you're doing whatever it is you're doing, and you're not losing your breath. The breath should always be kept moving in a nice, consistent way. The more complex life is, the greater the tendency to constrict sankoch. The greater the tendency, when you're constricted, to breathe just from the upper part of your chest. And then you don't get complete exchange of oxygen and carbon dioxide. Then you don't get an adequate amount of prana in your system. And then your tissues feel like they're being starved of prana. And then you go out and start looking for samosas. So if instead you're making it a point to breathe properly, you will find that automatically your system will, your organism, your tissues will feel more nourished by that prana, and you will feel less hungry in whatever way. And of course what happens, because we're human beings, the hunger is actually for prana, but we allow ourselves to be convinced that the hunger is for food or alcohol or tobacco or loud music or whatever it is that we're most interested in indulging in. In my opinion, modern life is always going to promote aggravation of vata, because vata is fast, because vata is eccentric, because vata is light as opposed to heavy. In this case, light means subtle. And things like these upakaranas, these devices, are providing us with lots of subtlety. They're providing us with, instead of, if you meet someone in person, You have not only, you're speaking with them, not only is there body language involved, but you're also smelling. There are cues that are happening from being in the same physiological space as that person is. When you're not in the same physiological space, it is because it is less tied down to the physical body, then your physical body is losing one of those cues that assists it to be well established in itself. Your body is taking in cues all the time, whether you're aware of it or not. Your body is always looking for, it's always listening for the background noise of the environment. This is why sometimes I've seen that people who live in cities, who go out into a very quiet part of the country, can't sleep because they don't have the background noise that they're getting from the city. Or they can't sleep because they feel uneasy because it's too dark, because or too whatever. They're away from their conventional environment. Vata is less physical. So pretty much everything that we're doing nowadays, start and stop, very active, and of course fear increases Vata. And there's so many things to fear. The Taliban, ISIS, who knows when, the next calamity will occur. If you're in the US, you wonder whether the person around you has a gun with them. Over here you may be wondering something else, but there's always a general sort of sense of unease in the modern world. And that sense of unease and generalized anxiety increases Vata also. So, it is said in Ayurveda that Vata is the strongest of the doshas because it is the easiest one to go out of balance and the most difficult one to put back into balance. So rarely will you find it useless to try to encourage Vata to be more under control. And because Vata is unstable, unpredictable, therefore having a nice daily routine automatically encourages Vata to be more stable, more well regulated. And because Vata is very light and dry especially, this is why Ayurveda is so fond of oil, medicated oil. Applying it to your body. You don't have to apply a lot of it. You in fact only have to apply enough of it so that your skin is smooth. Let's say just before you have a bath. Now, of course, I hope none of you actually use soap on your skin, because that is a bad thing for your skin. Oil. Small amount of oil, not very much. If you don't apply too much, you don't even need soap to wash it off. But the oil is very useful because each one, your skin is filled with nerve endings. And the nerve endings get a little bit of oil on them, and the nerve endings relax. They don't worry anymore for a brief period as to whether anything is going to come and disturb them. They take a little power nap. So, one thing you could do is apply a little bit of oil, and perhaps you don't have time or enthusiasm to apply it to your entire skin. Don't bother about that, don't worry. Remain calm. Apply it to your major joints. And Vata does not promote good digestion. So it is not surprising that indigestion is very common. There are many different causes for indigestion. Sometimes it's mainly due to kapha, as in eating too many rasgullas. Sometimes it's mainly due to pitta, as in eating too much achar and too many lal mirchi, or hirvi, or green mirchi, or any kind of mirchi. But the basic cause is often due to whatever it is that is motivating you to eat too much of that stuff. And why would you eat too much of that stuff? Well, one important reason is that the sweet, sour, and salty tastes all reduce vata. So suppose you have a lot of nervous energy in your system, and you don't really, it's happening at a subconscious, unconscious level. You know that you're uneasy, but you're also attracted to something namkeen with a little bit of, yes, and you know, some chutney to go along with it. So now you have the sweet and the sour and the salty tastes, all of which are going to temporarily reduce the vata. So you will feel a little better after that, at least until all of that starts to digest, in which case, if your digestive power is not very strong, then you won't feel so good again. The tastes were important. Of course, you can get those tastes from other things. If you apply oil to your system, that's kind of like applying the sweet taste to your skin. You can apply the sweet taste to your ear with the help of music. I mean, sweet music. And you can apply the sweet taste from the smell point of view as well. Most things that are fragrant have a certain basic sweetness to them. So you don't have to limit yourself to eating. There's a tendency to do that because you have to eat every day. But it's good to explore all five senses when it comes to inputting things into your system to encourage vata to be reduced.